Alrighty, hello and welcome. My name is Rich Frazee, and I will be the host and moderator for this IDEAL conference session. If possible, please turn your camera on so that the presenters can see you. Please make sure your mic is muted to minimize any background noise. If you'd like to offer nonverbal feedback during the presentation, for example, a thumbs up or a clapping or a heart emoji, we do have Zoom reactions available. There will be time at the end of the session for question and answer. Please note that by entering this IDEAL session, you acknowledge that you are aware this session will be recorded and may be posted online with IDEAL content. This session will utilize the Zoom live transcription function, which provides subtitles at the bottom of your screen. Please note that the accuracy of the transcription is contingent upon a variety of factors, including background noise and the clarity and volume of the speaker's voice. Thank you so much for joining us for this presentation, Zooming into the Job Market. Please join me in welcoming our presenters, Tracy George and Sarah Kerschner.
Good morning.
Hi, good morning.
I'm going to start by introducing myself. I'm Tracy George, and I'm an associate professor of nursing at Marion University in Florence, South Carolina, and I teach primarily in the nursing program here.
And I'm Sarah Kerschner, and I'm an assistant professor at the same university here in Florence, South Carolina. And I am also the chair of our healthcare administration program, which is really a public health program with a mix of business. And I teach predominantly in that program, as well as the doctorate in nursing practice program.
Okay, so how many of you have had many Zoom meetings over the last year since the pandemic? I think many people who didn't even know what Zoom was are very familiar with Zoom now. And we certainly have had to adjust to the online environment. I know I did a lot of telehealth visits with patients, and I would be very cognizant of what I was wearing from the top up and then just wear a pair of shorts. So we know that that is still the case. Some of the companies are getting back more into the office, but still Zoom is a huge issue with job interviews and even starting jobs with Zoom. So that's a big issue that we see, and we want to have our students prepared for that online presence. So let's talk about our objectives. We're going to talk about how an interactive virtual session can be used to teach students to present a professional pitch, which we know is very important with interviewing and with the job market. And we're going to talk about how we use some external consultants to provide constructive feedback to students and make them more marketable to future employers. And we're also going to talk about an event hosted by Marion that gave students the opportunity to apply professional attitudes, dress and behavior in professional situations. And we did this last semester, and it really was very popular with students, and I had a great time, and I think Sarah did as well. It was a lot of fun. And, you know, with Zoom sessions, sometimes they are not so much fun, but we had great feedback. So we wanted to share that with you all today. So we know that the classroom does not provide the experience of professional social interaction. Many times students, they'll go to class for 4 years and then just are not quite prepared for the professional world. And with social distancing guidelines, we know with the increase with the Delta variant, I know in South Carolina, it was very bad for quite a while. Luckily, I saw in the paper today, the numbers are the lowest that they've been since July, which is wonderful. But with social distancing guidelines, students may not be experienced or prepared for virtual interviewing and professional events. And even if they've attended virtual classes, it's not the same as a virtual professional event or a virtual interview. And networking with professionals in a virtual setting, learning how to develop that professional pitch to market themselves and practicing those interviewing skills in a Zoom session is something that really can't be duplicated in the traditional classroom setting. So we're going to be talking in this presentation of how virtual sessions can increase student confidence in interprofessional communications virtually, creating a personal brand for themselves, developing that personal pitch, how to network, and also being Zoom ready with clothing, being prepared, background, all of that we know is very important. So due to the ongoing pandemic, travel restrictions have hindered the 2021 and 2021 interviewing cycles. And many times these organizations will go ahead and do a Zoom interview, and sometimes even subsequent interviews are Zoom interviews as well. So, and organizations have been transitioning from face-to-face to virtual interviewing. And in the spring of 2020, 86% of organizations were using the virtual platform to interview candidates. So, and about 82% of organizations anticipate a decline in external hiring. Therefore, the competitive job market, that's not so much in the service industry, but in some of the more professional organizations, there's more of a competitive job market. And the virtual interviewing can be explored in non-medical disciplines. So there is some limited reports on virtual interviewing for healthcare positions. So college students, whether the interview is conducted face-to-face or virtually, college students need to be proficient in order to fully communicate their characteristics, such as being flexible, adaptable, their ability to communicate with others, their ability to be a team member, the ability to critically think to solve problems. All of these are so important in professional interviews. Many colleges, such as our own, do have a career development program. However, many students, only 17%, felt that these services were helpful. And I know Sarah and I struggle a little bit with getting students interested and involved with career services here at our university too. So students rank career services, virtual interviewing, and online workshops as some of the least effective services provided. Therefore, we thought that we could perhaps augment that with some sessions through our healthcare administration. And one study found that students reported increased confidence in interviewing skills and increased likelihood to use career services and be more confident in their dress, posture, and eye contact after participating in these type of mock virtual interviewing sessions. So they've been found to be helpful in the literature.
So the purpose of this project was to really increase that capacity and the confidence of our students to develop their own personal professional pitch, increase their understanding of expectations professionally, particularly when it comes to virtual situations, and also practice some skills in applying that professional attitude, dress, and behavior. And as Tracy mentioned, our students are in healthcare administration. They are going into healthcare facilities. Some of them are going into nonprofit organizations, but the field is pretty broad. And so they need to be prepared for any type of questions that are going to come up during a virtual interview, and be able to market themselves. And I think that is a missed opportunity in a lot of our courses, especially working with our freshmen, where they don't think about themselves as the product. And how do you market yourselves? How do you highlight your skills, your experience, your education, without sounding arrogant, but just to be able to convey what you can bring to the table. And so we wanted to give students a safe environment to practice those skills and get some constructive feedback. And so the setting was at a rural Southeastern undergraduate program here at Francis Marion in Florence, South Carolina, in our healthcare administration program. Our major is completely online. And so there are 30 credit hours that are 100% online. Students typically do their general education and their minor and their elective courses in person, but the major itself is online. So it certainly serves this project well, that students are already used to being online. They're used to completing assignments online and interacting with professors in an online capacity. The students were all students that were majoring in healthcare administration. We had 41 students participate, and there were 3 total sessions that were offered. And we contracted with 2 external consultants, one that was based out of Columbia and one based out of Memphis. And we were able to receive a grant to support the consultant fees, which was really exciting for us to be able to bring these folks to our students. And because it was virtual, it was less expensive than it would have been if we would have had to fly and pay for travel for them to come on campus. We also were able to incentivize participation for our students by offering extra credit. So we worked with the faculty members to offer points on a test or on an assignment if the student completed one of the virtual sessions. And the Zoom sessions, like I said, there were 3 total Zoom sessions that were offered. They were about an hour and a half each, and they were hosted by the 2 faculty, being Tracy and myself, and by the 2 external consultants. And students were able to work with peers to develop their own professional pitch. And so the consultants really talked to the students about what is a professional pitch, why is it important, when would we use it? And in our community, we live in a really small kind of rural community, and oftentimes our students will be at a downtown festival and run into the CEO of one of the larger hospitals here. And so it's not always the idea that they're going to be in an elevator of a skyscraper, because we don't have skyscrapers, but oftentimes they're going to run into these folks at community events. And so we would say to them, okay, if you're standing in line waiting to get a funnel cake at a community fair, then you've got 3 minutes to introduce yourself to the CEO of one of our hospitals. How are you going to do it? How are you going to stand out? And I think it was really important for them to have that opportunity to do that within these sessions. They received feedback from the consultants that helped to better build their confidence in marketing themselves. And the students majoring in healthcare administration were invited to participate. We have about 172 in the major, and the invitation was sent out to all of the students. We did cap the sessions at 15 per session because we didn't want the session to be, we didn't want to take away from the interactive ability. We knew that if we went over 15 students with the 2 consultants, we would have a lesser opportunity to be interactive and do some breakouts. And so we capped the sessions at 15 students each. So one of the things that was covered in the sessions was this idea of what is your why? And the consultants opened up the Zoom session with this icebreaker that we had never heard before, but it was really positively received. And it was that the participants needed to state their name and then tell the story of their name, which was really interesting. Some students didn't know that information. Some students had heard they were named after their great-great-grandmother. Some students, I think somebody said something about they were named after, like, they had a family pet that had a similar name. And they loved the pet. And so they named their kid that too. And so it allowed for the students to be vulnerable as they were comfortable, but also it was a great way to remember the names too, because it was tied to a story. And then the consultants also asked, what did you want to be growing up as a child? And oftentimes it was something completely different than what they're currently majoring in. And so they got to talk about why maybe they switched interest or why they're now in the major that they are now. And then they did this activity, the Simon Sinek Golden Circle, where students were able to answer the question of what is your why? So what motivates you? What drives you? Why do this? Why are you in this program? Why do you want to do X, Y, and Z? Why is it important to you? And they really dug deep with this activity, and it was really interesting to hear all the different whys. And then what is your contribution? So what are you putting out in the world? What are you proud of? How do you see yourself contributing to your community? And all of these things really led into that professional pitch and how to market yourself in a way that's going to stand out and allow these students to be competitive candidates in the job market. So these were some of the questions that were asked, and students were given an opportunity where they took a couple minutes to do this on their own, and then we came back as a group and discussed it. But what is your personal brand? So your personal brand is what you are, what you stand for, values, and the way you express your values. And so they filled in the blanks based on what they had said previously to create their why statement. So, to better my community so that I, create a health in the community that's better than the way I left it. Or, I want to help people because I enjoy helping people and I want to serve my community and and the needs of the area. And it was interesting because there were so many different ones, and especially you would think that we're a pretty homogeneous university. Most of our students come from the area. All of these students in these sessions were the same major, but we heard so many different whys, and it was really nice to hear that everyone kind of had their own driving why as to what they wanted to do. And it was nice to dig into that a little bit. So we also talked about personal branding, so how to create and influence the public perception of yourself. The consultants talked a lot about how students are represented online, and I think that's really important for our students who tend to put everything and anything on Snapchat. And so to really be mindful about what's out there, what's being documented. And the consultants talked about the percentage of employers now that are using Snapchat and Facebook and Instagram as a vetting tool. And I don't think our students had really considered that. And I have a feeling that many of them went private or deleted accounts after these sessions. But we also talked about how to position themselves as an authority. So how to build a case for a potential employer that you are an authority in a certain area or subject or industry. And how do you do that? By building skills, by participating in organizational boards or committees, by being a part of research projects, by volunteering. And how to elevate your credibility. So being involved in those types of activities and networking were all kind of strategies that were brought up. And so just being able to manage the brand online, and they recommended that our students go Google themselves, which was really interesting because oftentimes, you'll forget that was even posted somewhere, and you'll see a picture from 10 years ago that is, not representing yourself in the best light. But that's what employers are going to see if they do the same. So be very careful about what's posted. We also talked a lot about a LinkedIn profile with a lot of our students. This is not something that they have adopted. And so Tracy and I both encourage this with our freshmen in our university life classes, because we think it's important to kind of implement this early on so that they can think about how are you presenting yourself online. A lot of jobs now are being recruited and posted through LinkedIn. And so after the sessions, Tracy and I both had several invitations from new LinkedIn members that were the students that participated. So that was a really nice, tangible outcome of these sessions to see that the students were implementing that strategy of creating a LinkedIn profile, using a professional picture, keeping it up to date, networking, finding ourselves on LinkedIn, finding other classmates on LinkedIn to network and build that online brand. They talked a lot about being Zoom ready, which I think that this image of this woman from a CNN story, and she kind of tweets, just so I'm being honest. So, close up, she's got the cardigan and the nice background, and then zoomed out, she's appears to be in, I think, some like biker shorts and some Merrell sandals or something, ready to go hiking or walking. And I'm sure we can all relate to this. I think that we've all been in that situation where we might have to get up for a minute on a Zoom session, and then we remember, oh, we're not wearing pants, or we've got on some, pink zebra leggings. And so we talked a lot to our students about being camera ready, being present. The consultants talked about using a ring light and different lighting features, recommended having a microphone and having a very blank background, which we're not doing a very good job of right now, but nothing too distracting, and to dress appropriately and not have, jewelry that's very noisy. I think it was mentioned earlier, anything that's going to distract away from the audio is really important, and also that gives you the ability to transcribe later. And so all those things were brought up in a way that was very relatable to the young people. And I know as professors, especially when we teach online, we have seen everything from some of our students in some negligees to I had a student with a massive stuffed seal with a drink that I suspect might have had alcohol in it. And so to just be really mindful about how you're presenting yourself online, because that might be the one time that you're able to really pitch yourself to these employers. And so again, that idea of the personal pitch and needing to create it in less than a minute, this elevator speech, a very short speech that tells the story, needs to be interesting and memorable, but also succinct. And so our students were able to practice those pitches. the consultants gave them some really constructive feedback to help work on those. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? How do you highlight that in an elevator pitch? And what do you want to be known for? And I think sometimes because we also teach in this program and we advise these students, they hear us, but sometimes they don't. And it just goes in one ear, not the other. And so I think having these consultants that had experience in marketing and communications really helped to strengthen this idea and gave some weight to the feedback that they were getting on their professional pitches, because it was from an outsider, kind of an objective expert that can provide some really great tips and tricks for creating this message. So we administered an online post survey. It was a retrospective post survey to the participants. Of the 41 participants, 18 completed the survey, and over half, over 60%, were in agreement with the statement shown here. So 67% felt that because of their participation, they now understand how to market themselves in a professional pitch. Over 60% felt more confident when they engage in professional activities such as chatting with professionals or networking. Over 70% felt that they were more confident in their ability to initiate conversations with employers. And over almost 80% felt more confident in their ability to succeed in a virtual interview, which we felt like that was really promising, that this 1.5 hour session that was pretty low cost, low in terms of kind of preparation other than having a Zoom link ready and some objectives ready, but was able to reach a large number of students and didn't require us to be on campus, and we could use these external consultants. We felt like these were really positive findings and a good return on investment for kind of our work. So these were the qualitative responses when asked about what they were most nervous about prior to the session. And kind of the general consensus here was a lot of them were nervous about speaking in front of others and interacting, which is interesting because, many of our students are very interactive in a classroom setting, but they felt nervous about being in the virtual setting. We had one said they thought it was going to be boring or that it was going to be a waste of time, and just how to engage with professionals. So these are kind of those things that were kind of nerve-wracking to our students prior to. And then when they were asked about what they liked most, it was some really great feedback. They really liked how engaging it was, the energy level, how they were able to interact with their classmates. So while they were nervous about it, they also really liked it, and just stepping out of their comfort zone. They liked that interactive portion of it, how comfortable the consultants made them feel. And then just having these professional speakers. Again, I think that carried a lot of weight. When they're just kind of used to seeing us, and they had these folks that have really been in the field for a long time and have worked with large companies on strategic planning and development, marketing, and communications. And it was unique for them because they typically do work with organizations. And so this was a nice experience for them to work with individuals, kind of building these professional pitches in the same way that they do organizations. So it was a nice kind of mutually beneficial partnership. And then just being able to communicate rather than feeling interrogated. So these were some really positive feedback that we got from our participants after the session. So in conclusion, as studies and anecdotal evidence suggest, the students have very little experience in participating with these interactive virtual sessions to prepare them for the job market. We know many of our hospitals here are using these virtual sessions for interviewing. Oftentimes it's in a group interview, similar to a group in-person interview, which can be even more overwhelming and daunting than an individual interview virtually. But these interactive online sessions can really provide a safe place to practice these skills and to get some constructive feedback so that they can implement those strategies when they are in a professional interview, a professional setting. So we'd love to hear from you all in terms of how you've used Zoom and other video conferencing programs to build the confidence of students or your participants in professional settings. And how do you see these strategies sustained in a post-pandemic normal? I mean, we think that this kind of experience, we'd love to sustain it because we'd be able to continue getting these outside speakers and not limited to the geographical area. But there is, some disadvantages or drawbacks. Some students might not feel as engaged as in in-person settings, but we'd love to hear from you all about your thoughts on that. And then how has engagement changed, whether it's positive or negative because of the use of video conferencing?
Well, thank you so much. So we do have in Zoom under the reactions, there is a raise hand feature. There's also you can type into the chat if you have a question or you want to share in that group discussion. I'm already unmuted, so I'll just kind of share as far as Zoom. My role with the University of Wisconsin-Madison, I had been an online teacher, and then March 2020 hit. So, like all institutions, there was the rapid pivot. And so I was kind of brought in to help faculty use online tools. And you mentioned, just the students in your case, having so much more comfort level and kind of knowing what to do in the space. And I think back to myself working with faculty members, like, let's just practice having a Zoom session. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to set up a couple of devices in our Zoom session, and you can practice setting up the breakout rooms and moving from breakout room to breakout room, and what a difference that made for their comfort level. I'm also reminded there was a lot of assumption that the students, like, oh, they're young people in technology, they know what's up, they'll figure it out. And this is a good reminder that just because they're digital natives doesn't mean that this is natural for them. And to be able to make this part of the curriculum, I think is really, it's inspiring to hear about.
Yeah, I think if video conferencing was based in Snapchat, they would be experts. But I think, this is not, even with my students that are all online for the major, they still struggled with some of these synchronous sessions that we had in Zoom, because with our online courses, it's all, we use our course management system and everything's posted and they submit their assignments when it's due, but there's not anything happening in real time, or very little happening in real time. So that was another aspect of it, was, I need to sign on and, be coherent and awake and dressed at this time and be able to interact with you. And that's different when you're in kind of a asynchronous environment and they can just post things when it's due.
Oh, good point. Gloria, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I just posted in the chat. I'm an instructional designer at the Center for Teaching Excellence at the University of South Carolina.
Oh, hey, neighbor.
Hey, yes, Francis and Marion. I feel that preparing the faculty before they actually do like their Zoom meetings or even their Blackboard Collaborate Ultra sessions was key with them teaching in that virtual environment. And not only expressing to them and showing them how to use the particular features and with that, whichever tool they decided to use, it was important. And I stressed to them that it's important that the students also learn how to do it. If you're going to have a live session, maybe do a test session, a test run, give students, real details, complete details, and preparation, played an important part in that as well. Sometimes you may walk into a face-to-face classroom and what you're going to present or teach that day, but you may not have it fully planned out. This is what I'm going to do first, this is what I'm going to do second. So in the virtual environment, it takes a little pre-planning.
Yeah.
And so, and I found that, some instructors liked the move to virtual, some hated the move to virtual.
Yes.
I must say that I had job security, definitely, during this time period. We were extremely busy. I mean, our numbers went through the roof as far as support. But I think that this situation that we're in has kind of opened people's eyes to, some people had negative thoughts about online teaching and learning, and it's not beneficial. It's, it's kind of like a shortcut, but then when they were thrown into it, their attitudes and perceptions kind of changed. So thank you for allowing.
We completely agree with that. I mean, we had some, not in the School of Health Sciences, I think, because our graduate programs are online and a lot of our programs are already online, but we heard from outside of our school that other departments, I mean, they had not even posted anything on Blackboard ever before, like our course management system. Everything was paper. And I mean, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if some of them were still using the light, but whatever, like the projector to write things on. So it was a learning curve for some departments. We were kind of lucky that we were prepared for it.
One thing though, talking about our sessions, you know, it's difficult sometimes to keep people's attention with Zoom. And that was one of the nice things that kept our attention and the students' attention, because they couldn't really disappear. There were only 15, and then there were the 2 consultants and the 2 of us. So, you know, there was, you know, a good bit of close interaction. I know sometimes in the larger Zoom sessions, you know, with 70, 80 people, it's easy for people to kind of disappear. And I don't know if you've seen the meme where the person has the doll in front of the computer and they're sleeping, you know, you don't know what they're doing, right? So that was a nice feature of this, these sessions that we had that were intentionally small.
And we prepared them to have their screen on the whole time and be dressed. So they knew that, kind of going back to Gloria's point, they were prepared ahead of time that they needed to be presentable and have their screen on. We even said, do not be driving, you know, kind of, so all these tips that you would think are kind of common sense, but unfortunately they're not, but they were prepared for that. And because it was interactive and engaging, I don't think they really had an opportunity to like zone out. But that all,
because they were being called on quite often.
But if it was larger, we wouldn't have been able to do that. So yeah.
So we are doing well with time wise. Again, this is very, very interesting stuff, very relevant. Oh, love the outfits.
We've got we'd be happy to share the post survey. We did it through Google Forms, or any of the materials that were used, we'd be happy to share. So feel free to email either one of us, and we're happy to share materials. There's no need to reinvent the wheel.
Thank you. Thank you. One thing, and again, if anyone has comments, feel free to use the chat. Feel free to use the Zoom raised hand. And actually, I think we have a moderated number of people that if anyone just kind of wants to just chime in and start talking, that's okay. I'll just jump in with the comment of, you know, going forward with Zoom, what the benefits of this sort of work is. I am an optimist, and I do see, well, at some point we will get to that return to mostly normalcy. You know, it'll be safe to go out again, you know, for everybody, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. At the same point, I'm thinking of, you know, so many financial institutions just took a financial beating. And in addition to that, this Zoom call isn't costing me, I mean, maybe a couple pennies as far as my, you know, my internet and my electricity, but I'm not getting on a plane. I'm not booking a hotel. I'm not eating out.
One thing that we found, we actually presented more from 2020 forward than we did previously, because so many of the conferences were online, and they were so much more affordable, even with the, you know, the registration, even if it was, you know, $100, it was much less than flying. So even for faculty, for professional development, and I think for interviewing, I think that that will continue. Instead of bringing candidates in, we did some interviews for faculty even via Zoom. So I agree with you, absolutely.
And you have more just physical time to do it, because if, let's say we had to travel for this conference, a day to get there, you know, maybe the conference 1 or 2 days, then a day to come back, versus, you know, 45 minutes to an hour, we could do another conference in an hour. So you're able to actually do more because there's not that travel time. I mean, so I do think there's some really great advantages that we see. I know in my courses that are not synchronous, I've started implementing debrief sessions through Zoom as opposed to writing the feedback on paper. So I do it in groups, and then and some individual, and they have to sign up, and it's only 15, 20 minutes. But I think the students relate to it more because I can actually provide more context than if I'm just writing, you know, errors in grammar or errors in APA formatting or what have you. But I'm able to actually discuss it with them, and they can do it from wherever they are. I mean, we have a good majority of our students are commuter students, and so it wouldn't make sense for them to drive on campus for a 30-minute meeting if they live an hour away.
Yeah, and I use Zoom a good bit. We've got a doctorate nursing practice program. And with our DNP students, some of them are more local, some of them are in other states or across the state of South Carolina. And I do offer Zoom sessions to meet with them. That's a great way to really connect and interact in a more realistic way than even just a phone call. So that's one way that I've been using Zoom is with student meetings. And some students prefer to meet through Zoom instead of coming by during office hours. So I think it's given us some flexibility and to meet the students' needs better.
Yeah, I can remember being a commuter student and the looking for parking, and now I'm going across campus and like, where in this hallway in this giant building is my professor's office?
Right.
And
And listen, where we are, I noticed gas, you know, it's like $3.15 a gallon. So I mean, you know, driving 30 or 40 miles to campus is not cheap for students who are on a budget, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I think as we resume to normalcy, whatever that looks like, I think, you know, being in 3D space instead of 2D space, you know, there'll still, you know, be situations where, boy, this is going to be really great, or this will be really helpful in this case. And I'm all about saving lots of time and money for the rest of them.
Yeah, we agree.
Yeah. We have just a little time left. Are there any other questions, any other thoughts, any other ideas that anyone would like to share? Well, in that case, I would like to let's offer our thanks so much to Tracy George and Sarah Kirschner. Thank you so much for this wonderful
Thank you so much for
information.
having us. It was great interacting with you all today, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
I hope we're to practice what we're preaching.
Yes, very engaging. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to all of our conference attendees for attending this session. I would just like to remind everybody there are a couple of asynchronous activities that people can do completely on their own time, some e-posters, there's a course showcase. We also have other presentations that are scheduled that as people's schedules allow, we'd love to see you and enjoy the rest of the Ideal Conference. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.